What's up? It's Matt. We're back with another episode of MPTV. We're in the Deep Work Studios at our headquarters in Northern Kentucky. And today we've got a local restaurant owner and avid entrepreneur. Kam, tell us who you are. Tell us about the businesses.
How's it going, guys? My name is Kam Siu. So I have a food distribution company here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we've been in business for 7.5 years. So out of that company, we service Dayton, Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Lexington, Louisville. Out of that, we decided to get into the restaurant business. So we own Dope Asian Street Fair. We currently have 3 locations in the greater Cincinnati market. After that, we started another company called Home Skillet Corp. And that one, we have the Decibel Korean Fried Chicken. So we have 2 locations in the greater Cincinnati market with that concept. And right now we're looking at 2 more locations, hopefully to expand more next year.
Love it. Love it. So talk about the also Pelican.
Oh, that's right. We just purchased Pelican's Reef and the Reef top over in Anderson back in September.
A heritage brand.
It is 27 years and still going strong.
So the one thing that caught my attention about you was when I first met you, I come across all sorts of people in the restaurant business. And some people are in the restaurant business from a deep love with food or a deep love with beer, or they were in it their whole life. To me, you came across as an entrepreneur and a thinker. Like, this is an opportunity. This is a gap in the market. I mean, think about it. Korean fried chicken. I had never heard the term before I met you. And by the way, it's amazing if you get a chance to try it out. I've been thinking about that corn dog I had for the past month.
Oh, it's been on fire on Cincinnati Chowdown.
Yeah.
It's every week. There's multiple postings about it. And we get a ton of engagement on all of the posts. People are commenting how amazing it is. So we're just really excited to be able to bring a product of that quality to this market.
Yeah, and so you're looking at not necessarily something that's your hardcore passion in life, but more what's going to succeed, what's the market. So what made you look at the concept with Dope, and obviously Pelican, you bought a heritage restaurant that was doing well, that you knew, hey, we could take this, I'm sure do some awesome stuff with it. But what made you, when you looked at the concept for Dope a few years back and now with Decibel, what made you think about those concepts, and why not do what everybody else is doing, like fast casual Mexican and everything else?
We wanted to be different, right? What's the point of bringing another concept to Cincinnati that's already been done by 10, 15, 20 other people? It just wasn't exciting for us. Could we have done a taco concept and do it really well? We could. We make really good tacos as well, right? But I think it's only a matter of time before we find a unique take on tacos for us to get into that concept. But when we started Dope, we grew up eating noodles and dumplings. In Cincinnati at that time, we didn't really have a restaurant that specialized in just noodles and dumplings. So we said, can we do it here? Is there a market? And at that time, we didn't know. There was a space on Court Street that opened up that gave us an opportunity to test the concept out to see if it worked. And unfortunately for us, it worked out really well. That we got the contract with Kroger at the food hall, and it's taken off. Even before that, we kind of did our research to see the viability of it. We looked at the East Coast, West Coast restaurant trends. From our research, what we've learned is whatever is successful on the East Coast and West Coast, it takes anywhere between 5 to 10 years to move into the Midwest.
Okay.
And now, if you look, there's ramen places in almost every freaking corner in the suburbs, right? So luckily for us, we were one of the first to do it. And we marketed it really well, and we branded it. And I can say our ramen is very different than all of the other ramen houses here in Cincinnati. And then with Decibel Korean Fried Chicken, it was same approach. Do we have it here in Cincinnati? The answer was no. Do we have it here in the state of Ohio? Yeah, I think there was 2, and now there's only 1. So we looked at the East Coast, West Coast, kind of looked at the statistics to see how many there are and what was going on social media. It didn't make sense for us to bring it here. And our research said, yes, there's one in every corner in New York City. You go out West Coast in California, they're everywhere. I went down to Atlanta before all of this, and it's very plentiful down there. We checked social media, and Korean Fried Chicken was going nuts. So we said, let's do it. And if we're going to do this, let's do it quick. So we did. We launched back in May for our first location as a pop-up that turned into a physical standing location. And now Walnut Hill is opening this Saturday.
Yeah. Next to the brewery.
Next to the brewery, Esoteric.
Yep. So what I like about that is you followed the data, because I think a lot of times, I had a friend of mine, he was telling me recently an idea he had, which I told him, because I'm pretty honest, like I think it sucks. I said, I don't think it sucks because of my opinion. I think it sucks from what I found online. It's, we were talking about this before we came in here with regards to us looking at social media, looking back and saying, what did people engage in? What did they share, comment? What's trending online? Big thing I see a lot of people do is they go with like their gut sometimes and what they love or they like versus, okay, what's the market prime for?
Correct. And that's kind of how we looked at it. It's easy for restaurateurs, especially like executive chefs. And we know a lot of executive chefs that they're fantastic cooks, right? But I think sometimes their ego really gets in the way and ultimately leads to, disaster at the end where their concept doesn't survive. It's not because the food wasn't great. It's just that the demand isn't there. Yeah. For us, everything we do, we have to make sure that the demand is there. And luckily for us, the two concepts we looked at, it was high demand, very, very low supply. So for us from the economic side, it made perfect sense. And as much as we want a white table cloth, like 5-star restaurant, fine dining, we knew it was very, very difficult. The probability of it for being successful is very low. It's very high overhead. It's just day in, day out. You kind of never leave, and there's very, very little room for air. With our concept, we literally looked at it and got it to a point even before we opened our doors from an operational side to do all of the cost controls. And we said, if we're going to do a restaurant business in this climate, the economic climate, it's we have to make sure everything makes sense from cost, labor, execution, and before we even launched the idea, we had to map all of this out. So we physically calculated our risk versus reward, and it just made sense for us.
So, talking about the other side of it, because one thing you guys have done really well is the branding side. I mean, I'm 45. I grew up in the 80s. But what's funny is like my son, who's 17. All his friends, like I got in the car with my son last night to go run an errand with him, and he's got Tupac on. And I'm like, I didn't know who Tupac was. Like, and all his friends love my Jordans I wear, my different Air Force Ones, and like I'm an '80s kid, and it's kind of relates to both. Talk about, I guess first I want to come back to that, but talk about the story about how Dope's name came about, because it wasn't like this is gonna be called Dope. It was something else, right?
It was. It was crazy. So the first place we looked at, like we didn't know what we were gonna call our concept. We were working with Wheat Restaurant Group at the time, and the restaurant that was there before us was called Wheat, and they wanted to call it Little Wheat. We looked at each other. I looked at my partner and I said, there is no way in hell we're calling anything little in any concept that we launch, right? It was go big or go home. And it just happened that there was this giant mural on the wall, and it had a guy with his face stuffed in a ramen bowl, and in this bubble text, it said Dope. So when we saw it, we were like, oh, that's a cool name, Dope. Let's do it. Then when they said, no, that's just a mural with the word Dope on it, we're going to call it Little Wheat. We're like, no. We're going to call it Dope. Like, that's it. It's just popped out. And they say, look, man, we grew up in the 90s, right? Yep. We can take this concept and have a lot of marketing fun with it. We can tie in all of the music from the 90s culture. From a branding side, we can do so much with it. From a merchandising side, it's going to be money for us down the road. So that's how we came up with the name, Dope.
And what I love what you've done with it is you've expanded on it. You haven't just kept it as Dope, the name. It's, you walk in, there's murals and there's hip hop playing, and there's a vibe that to me is fun and hip and cool. It's not like a lot of, we deal with franchises and independents, mostly independents, but that's one thing I always cracks me up about franchises. Like the only place I've ever seen kind of go against this is Mellow Mushroom. They have different vibe in all their places. But most franchises, most restaurants, vanilla, trying to not upset anybody's eyes. You guys have the opposite. Talk about what you decided to go with on your interiors and kind of the branding inside.
We want to be a little bit edgy, right? We always believe that as you walk into a restaurant, the decor, the first impression that you get, it's going to dictate what the consumers are going to expect from your food. Our branding on the interior, it's a lot of graffiti.
Yep.
We love hip hop music. If you go to a Hyde Park location, we have the freedom to play any kind of hip hop there we want. It's edited, so that's good. But our Kroger properties, it's a little bit more corporate, so we have to dial it down. But we wanted the brand to kind of reflect who we are as the ownership group. We like to think we're still young, but obviously, I'm approaching 40 here in a month, so the young side's kind of out of it. But we still believe we're still pretty hip, right? Even though my kids think I'm old and not cool anymore. But no, that's their opinion. So as you walk in, you see all of this. It is a reflection of us. We like to have fun. We like to have a lot of high energy. And if you go into our restaurant crew, that's kind of how it just translates over to our work crew with our brand. Everybody is excited to be there. Music we play in the front of the house, the music we have on our speakers in the back, it's the same music, right? It's crazy, but nobody gets tired of the hip hop music. And I think that's why we love the brand so much, is because we want people to love our food and never get tired of it, just like the music and everything else that we love about this brand.
Okay, break time. Restaurant owners, you're watching MPTV, so you're obviously interested in increasing your sales and profits. But what if I told you you could eliminate the hope and pray out of your marketing? You could spend money and actually see results. Most marketing starts with attention, like a billboard. The problem is that attention leads nowhere. That's why we created the ROI Engine Restaurant Program. We take attention and gain huge engagement, whether it's in-store or online. We help you build a database with deep customer information that's comprised of email, cell phone, and birthday. And then we drive them into the restaurant with trackable results. Yes, results you can actually see. If you're interested and want to have a conversation, check out restaurantmarketingthatworks.com. Worst case scenario, you get a lot of great ideas. Now back to the show. I got an idea. It just came in my head. So we obviously work with you guys, and we're going to start helping you with more and more stuff. And a lot of times we'll do gift card contests, guess this, guess this. What if instead of a gift card contest, and this would be really specific, if we went out and said, hey, we bought 10 pair of Jordan 1s, because you can get them in a lot of places now, $100, $150 a pair. And we got a size 10 Jordan 1s. Here's the picture of them. Comment on the post below if you would like to win these and if this is your shoe size. I mean, talk about tying the brand, getting engagement, because at the end of the day, all we need, like I tell restaurants this all the time, ABR, attract, build, retain. And the R in the retain is retain attention. Is that what's going to make somebody who had dope last Wednesday, like the one up there in Hyde Park? I mean, there's 20 restaurants within a mile of there.
Oh, yeah.
Why are they going to drive past one of the others that have dope? The food, obviously, at most of these places is all good. The service is typically good at most restaurants now. In my opinion, it's retaining their attention. And if one week they're guessing on a contest to win a pair of Jordans, and next week they're commenting their favorite 80s hip-hop battle, is it Wu-Tang or is it Eazy-E, NWA, whatever. If you have their mind seeing dope and they go to, hey, where are we going to lunch? We're going to dope. I think that's the key element of it. But what do you think about contests, doing things like that?
It's fun, right? Especially with the media era that we live in, how prominent the social media is. It's not about the likes. It's a topic that we talk about in our restaurant group all the time. That's great that we have all the 500 likes. That's fantastic. But the problem is there's no engagement. There's no commenting. There's no reposting. Right? And that's what we want. We want engagement so people understand what our brand is. It's not just the food, right? It's people having conversations and having fun conversations. And I think it brightens up people's day. How often do you get where somebody asks you, hey, your favorite hip-hop artist of all time, go. Yeah. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can create this stuff where everybody has a platform to talk about topics that's not a lot of people throw out there, it's fun. then it becomes more than just the food. It also becomes a Facebook page or an Instagram page that people can go to and be like, hey, what's the hot topic today?
Yep.
Right? If everybody's at work on a Monday, they got nothing else to do, and then we pose a really cool question, and they can all go to town at it and just have a good old time to start their day.
So on that topic, who is your favorite hip hop band?
I mean, it's Wu-Tang all day.
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang forever, right?
I'm a Too Short guy. I like Too Short.
It's Wu-Tang for me. It's just the amount of just the vocabulary that they use.
Oh gosh,
it's insane. But I think there was a study done about hip hop artists and the amount of the percentages of like the Webster dictionary that is incorporated into all of their lyrics. And across the board, not just Wu-Tang, but every single member of Wu-Tang, it rated like super, super high. And then you look at some of the other artists, like DMX, even like Snoop is awesome. I love Snoop, right? But in terms of like the vocabulary usage, it's one of like the worst out there, right? But I think it just goes to show the intellectual level of the whole entire group within the Wu-Tang.
Eminem's got to be up there too. He uses
yes.
So I have a kind of an Eminem story. So you know the movie 8 Mile?
Yes.
So I'm in New Orleans at Harris Casino gambling. 8 o'clock. We ended up playing craps from like 8 p.m. to like 2 a.m. And we're playing with this guy for about an hour and a half. And his dad goes, hey, he's got Anthony talking about your movie that's coming out soon. And I'm like, oh, what's your movie? And he's like, oh, it's nothing. You probably never heard. I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, it's Eminem's movie. I said, 8 Mile? He's like, it's like a month before it debuted. I'm like, yeah. I have a small part. It's nothing big. And he was downplaying it big time. It was Anthony Mackie, who was Papa Doc. And I'll never forget because we played craps all night, had a great time. He won like 30 grand. I won like 2 grand. One of my employees won like 8 grand. And we're having a fun time. And like a month later, when 8 Mile comes out, we go and see it. And I'm like, that's the dude. And I'm like, watching the movie. I'm like, okay, this wasn't an extra on the movie. But it was funny how humble he was. And now he's, I think he was Black Panther or he was something recently. I want to say Anthony Mackie was. But he's a huge actor. But it was pretty cool because I'm like, wow, there's a guy who talked about, he wasn't there yelling like, I'm the man, my movie's coming out. He was playing it low key. But that's my hip hop claim to fame.
I don't have a story like that.
Okay, well, we can find one. So talk about what you see, because you have an interesting side of things, and that you have the food distribution side. Mm-hmm. That you get to work with restaurants. I'm sure you've been dealing with all the supply chain headaches lately. What are some things you've learned on that side of the business that you bring into your business because you get to see how other operators do things?
I think the big thing is, especially through the last, call it 1.5 years, 2 years, right? It's being flexible. The restaurants that have done really well are the ones that have stayed flexible and are willing to substitute brands, right? Okay. If they use a particular brand, but we can't get it in, their chefs are smart enough to use a different brand and alter the flavor to get it as close as possible to what they were doing, and those are the ones that are doing great. The ones that are set on a particular item and aren't making the changes, I can tell you, looking at their numbers in terms of what we've been supplying them, it's not looking well, right? And I think that's the same for all restaurant owners. It's a simple item on a menu like onion rings. I know onion rings was in like super short supply, and people just 86 it but never replaced it. And then something else gets 86, and another item, and another item. So now you're up to, call it 5 to 7 items. You just 86 because nobody has it in. Well, they don't replace it, right? And we tell people, hey, you have to replace it, and they won't. Why? Because it's their pride. And I think it goes back to the comment you said about your 8 Mile story. It's just being humble, right? It's understanding that it's not about you. It's about the consumer. And that's what we've really understood through this last 1.5 to 2 years is owners that understand that it's not about them and it's about the end consumer, and they need to do everything possible to keep as many items on the menu as possible and deviate and just pivot away from the norm. They're the ones that's going to make it. And I think that's the reason why we've done well is because we have, on a distribution side, we communicate with our clients and we let them know what's in, what's out, what the time frame is. Here's what the substitute items are. Can you use it? If you can't and you don't know how to use these items, we'll help you, right? And I think that's the beauty of working with us is we're not just here to sell food. We're not here to just operate a restaurant, but we really look to do partnerships with all of our clients. If our restaurant needs to come to us and ask us to go into their site to help with their food costing because it's out of whack, we don't charge any extra for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things we do to create that partnership to gain the people's trust. I would say 90% of our clients on the distribution side, we're more than just a business-consumer relationship. We are literally like best friends with a lot of them, and they can pick up the phone and call me at any time, and we answer questions for them. Any struggles that they have, we help them because they understand. We understand their operation inside and out. We understand all of their inventory, everything that they do. We understand their food costs where they should be. And we see it. We see their purchases versus their sales numbers. And we know where they should be at. And if they're not, then we actually initiate that conversation and say, hey, you're purchasing $6,000 from us a month. That's a pretty big purchase number for a lot of the clients. Where are you at with your sales? And they'll give us a sales number. It's like, something's off. Let's sit down, let's look, right? So we offer all of this stuff at no charge because that's just how we do business. We're not looking for just a business relationship. We want more. We want that personal relationship and really build that trust between everybody. So we know we will never lose the business, and that's our approach with everything. Same with our restaurants. It's we take a lot of time. We talk to a lot of customers, and I think that's a lost art in the food business where a lot of the owners they worry about the operation, but they really don't get out to understand the customers and build that relationship with them. And it goes back to your statement about retention. Media marketing can do a lot for it, but the other big piece is how much of that retention can you do in-house? And I think that's just something we do better than a lot of the restaurants out there. And I think that's why we're successful. Is we make that personal connection. We get to know people by name when we see them. We welcome them back, and we really show them that we appreciate your business. Thank you for spending your money with us. When there are hundreds of other restaurants you could be giving this money to.
Yeah, that's huge. As I mentioned, I've last couple episodes I've been working the last 3 or 4 weeks, a couple shifts a week at Rapid Fired Pizza, Florence, across a mile from here. And one thing that was eye-opening to me. I'm looking at it from a marketing standpoint. My goal is to go in, get a little more experience in the restaurant space because all of my experience has been, I'll say, management, watching, not doing. And I'm like, I want to be there cutting the pizzas and dropping crap on the floor. I haven't dropped the pizza yet. I did give the wrong pizza to somebody one time, and that was a different topic. But I've had that one mistake. But the one thing I noticed is Michael, who owns the store, and even his employees, I've watched them when the people walk in, like the one guy, Jackson's one of his managers, when people walk in, they know when they walk in the door who they are. And they have the way they prepare their allergen pizzas. Like some guys have certain cheese issues. They'll actually prepare the one guy's in the freezer because the way he wants it, he's really sensitive. And when he walks in, they're like, hey, there's our guy. Like, Matt, you can't touch his pizza. We have something special we do. And they go in the freezer, they prepare it, it goes in the oven, it comes off, it has all new cuttings in. But it's that touch that makes consumers know that you give a shit.
Yeah.
Because they know them. And we had I'll tell you a story. I've told this before in the podcast, but it goes deep. I won't say the brand, but this was a franchise that we worked with 2 of their stores that were franchises, but corporate helped with marketing because the owners honestly sucked at marketing. And then we had 3 franchises that we knew really well that hired us on their own. And so I remember going to the office. It was about 60 days data, and they had spent $1,000 on each restaurant on Facebook and Instagram ads. And so all 5 stores had the exact same reach and almost identical impressions because that's not hard to buy. The engagement or the comments, which is something we measure, was high at the very top at these 2 stores, average at the middle one. The bottom 2 were terrible. The shares were 180 for the top one and 6 for the bottom one. And I remember going in and talking to the marketing director, and then the CEO had come out and wanted to hear the story after I told him what was going on. And he said, tell me what you see here. I said, well, I see a brand where the owner, I'm going to guess this store is owned by an attorney or a doctor or somebody because they bought a franchise as passive income and it's going to run on its own. And this one, I know who runs it because they're in there all the time. And they said, why is that correlate online? I said, because the people who see this post go, that's my place. Like, for example, if it was Michael Cat, that's Michael Castman. That's Michael. I love that location. I'm going to share it. This is my place. Go eat pizza here. The people who see the guy who's the attorney who never walks in the restaurant, they don't care because they don't know anybody. They have no relationship. And so they just see the post and they keep scrolling. They might like it, but they aren't commenting and sharing because they don't have a deep connection with anybody in the four walls. And it's wild because you look at that, 180 shares to 6 shares for $1,000 is a big difference. And talk about retaining and getting new people involved in your brand. I call it the transfer of trust, that if I share something on Facebook, I'm transferring to my audience that follows me, this is a person I trust. Go do business with them. And that's key.
It is. And I think it's interesting you brought up the fact that the bottom restaurant, you say, it's probably an attorney or a doctor.
And it was an attorney, actually.
And it doesn't surprise me. So Decibel Korean Fried Chicken, we're starting to put all of our franchise materials together. And one of the qualifiers for us to sell it to somebody, one of the big questions is, are you planning on working this operation? And from our research, it goes back that we really, we know attorneys and doctors love to own restaurants, but they don't want to work it, right? And that's something we kind of circle on the paper and reflect it, is that, if they want this restaurant and franchise it from us, they have to work it. You can't just buy it and expect it to run on its own, because that's not what we want our brand to be. We want people to come in and say, hey, I love this place. Hey, this is Matt's place. Well, this is Kam's place. We love supporting the business because they're just good people, and that's what we want.
Love it. That's the path to take. And I can tell you from a person that's worked with that exact situation many times, it's obvious. And the reviews. We had a restaurant, one of those restaurants in that 5. I made a comment, the one that was second from the bottom. I said, hey, this guy obviously has his stuff together, food quality, cleanliness, and customer service, but not personality. And they're like, oh, yeah, he's back of house. He's scared to come out of the kitchen. And so you can tell that when somebody is working that restaurant and what happens. So,
restaurant owners, did you know Matt has free online marketing courses that teach you how to successfully market your restaurant? Email support@mattplapp.com to get access to the courses and a free social media content calendar.
Appreciate your time today.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. The last question I always ask is, as an entrepreneur, as an operator, you're a go-getter, but is there something that you do to put it on airplane? Like I turned my phone on airplane mode earlier so that nobody would call me and disrupt the podcast. Is there something you do? Like last night, I went to my son's lacrosse. He had football practice, and then afterwards, he's playing lacrosse now. So I went to his lacrosse practice for an hour and a half, sat there with my wife, watched my son, had no phone. And to me, it was time to talk to my wife, time to relax, get away from business. Is there something that you do that puts you in airplane mode?
We love food, right? We love food. We love wine. So at least for my wife and I, when we have busy weeks, we try really hard to kind of get away for a few hours and shut everything down. I know if I put in airplane mode and it starts to fly out of my pocket a little bit, she'd say, hey, just remember, it's no phone time. Right? I was like, all right, got it. But I do need people to put me in check. I am a workaholic. It's good and bad. But the phone, it's amazing how times have changed. I mean, growing up as a kid, we never had a phone on us. But now it's like it's never out of my hands, right? There's just so much stuff going on. It's the same when it comes to my kids. They'll say, Dad, get off the phone. Like, it's our time now. And it's like, all right, got it. But I need people to keep me in check. The only time the phone really stays away is like 1 or 2 in the morning on a Friday, Saturday night or morning, I guess. And everybody's asleep. And it's just literally me and a nice glass of bourbon, just watching a TV show for an hour and just kind of relax and reset for the week. But other than that, it's I need like everybody to keep me in check and say, get off the phone.
Yep. That's how all of us are. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Love the conversation.
Yeah, it's great.
I look forward to getting some of those. We got to get some Jordans bought and do some unique contests. Maybe get some old vinyl hip hop records. Do a contest for that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So we will get with our team and we'll make that happen.
Cool. That's all we got for this episode of MPTV. Embrace your culture. Embrace the customers in the 4 walls. Get engagement online and get a glass of bourbon. Watch some TV and get away from your phone. That's all we got. See you next episode.
All right. Take care.